AI-powered RevOps, where the learning never stops. Hosted by Sandy Robinson, she's leveling up your ops. From data to deals, she reveals how AI really pops. Real talk, real playbooks, no fluff, just jaw drop. So plug in, turn it up, let the insights flow. You're tuned to AI-powered RevOps, now let's start the show.
Hey everyone, welcome back to AI-Powered RevOps. I'm your host, Sandy Robinson, and this is where real talk meets real-world execution in an AI-powered world. Today, I'm excited to welcome Anne Pao to the show. Anne is the founder and CEO of Ignite, where she helps companies build stronger go-to-market strategy and revenue operations foundations. And she brings more than 20 years of experience across growth, analytics, and cross-functional operations. Today, we're digging into what RevOps leaders need to get right as AI and automation reshape the GTM engine. If AI is moving faster than your operating model, you'll want to hear this one. All right, Anne, welcome to the show.
Hi, Sandy. Thanks so much. And I love all the pink.
Yes. You know, I like the pink and the black is kind of my thing. So I like to have fun with it. So tell me a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Yeah, sure. So I've been in kind of operations, finance, revenue roles for my entire career, data roles. And now I lead Ignite. And Ignite's just me, by the way, but I'm a fractional operator. So I work on go-to-market strategy, revenue operations. I work with companies that are startups, scale-ups, public companies. And I like to say that I kind of work as an embedded expert. So I embed into your team. I work alongside your teams, from like literally execution on the ground to your leadership team to sometimes your executive team, depending on the company and what they need, really helping them, one, set the right foundation that's going to enable them to transform and scale their go-to-market.
I love it. And I like how you really break down the fractional side of things, because I think you really bring a lot of value there in what you do. And obviously, you've been doing it a long time. So I think companies you work with are definitely lucky to have you.
Thanks. Yeah. And, I'll add, it's interesting. And, I was in-house for my whole career, 20 plus years, multiple companies being, a role like yours, VP of Revenue Strategy, Enablement. And then I decided, I'm going to do it on my own because there were just so many companies that I felt needed this help and couldn't afford a $300,000, $400,000 full-time VP of
Right.
revenue. You have to be at a certain level of scale. And so now I work. What's interesting is I thought it was going to be a lot earlier stage companies, which it was in the beginning. But now my ICP, if you will, is like 50 to 100 million companies in that growth journey. And then companies that are 100 million north going towards 300 preparing for IPO. So those are kind of like my two pockets of companies that I work with that have different challenges that they're trying to tackle.
That makes a lot of sense, because a lot of times that's where PE then gets involved. You have a new PE firm and they say,
yes.
why don't you have RevOps? And then
PE
it's like,
firms love me. PE firms like
yeah.
this.
Oh,
like
I
us.
bet. I bet. Yeah. I mean, that's why they hire RevOps, and what a great option to have somebody build the foundation while they're growing without having to make the full investment, and lean on somebody like you to help them find that person long-term, right? That long-term RevOps person. So before we dive into all things AI, I would love to know one personal interest or fun fact, if you will, that your work friends may not know about you.
Yeah, this came up recently. I told a friend that I used to actually be a food writer and restaurant reviewer for a number of San Francisco periodicals. So I was a restaurant reviewer for SF Station. I was the burger columnist for the SF Examiner. I worked for sanjose.com, and I interviewed a lot of chefs, including Dominique Crenn, the only female chef to get 3 Michelin star before she launched Atelier Crenn. I actually interviewed her in her restaurant prior to that and right when she launched Atelier Crenn.
Wow. That's really cool. That's really interesting. It reminds me of, I don't know if you've seen the show Emily in Paris, where
I have not. I have heard about it. I heard it's good.
Okay. She has a boyfriend that opened a restaurant, and it's all about getting the Michelin star. So they were trying to like figure out who was writing about it, and who was eating there, and who was reviewing them, and all that stuff. So anyway.
Oh, I will check that out. Thank you for the rec.
It's a really cute show. It's a cute show, especially if you like fashion too. It's kind of a cute one. Well, cool. So I love that information, and now everybody that listens to this is going to know. So I'm sure people will be hitting you up for that, getting food recommendations from you. So you've spent, I've known you, I've followed you over the last several years and just working together or connecting at various conferences and things like that. So you, a lot like me, at least in terms of how long we've been doing this. So I can relate to that. So around 20 years in the area of growth and analytics. How has that shaped the way you think about revenue operations today?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the core principles are still there. And so when I think about RevOps today, and people ask me this, like, what does it take to be a strong, successful revenue operations leader? And I think back on kind of like those early shaping moments in my career that still hold true. One, you have to have a true systems thinking approach. And I think we all know what that is, but in case people don't, it's not just about like being good with systems, like thinking across teams, maybe across systems. And that was shaped very early in my career when I was the finance lead on an enterprise campaign that was literally unifying different parts of this $80 billion company that I worked for as like a little itty bitty finance analyst, right? So that was this real introduction. But also, I think really understanding like the best RevOps leaders that I know and practitioners and these early rising ones really understand that it is about the leverage and the linkage points. And I was reading a post recently from the CEO of Box, and he talked about this. He said, what's going to happen with AI and the people who are going to get the most out of AI in terms of operators, something to this effect, are the ones who really understand where the leverage is in the business. And I read this and I was like, applause. Absolutely. And I think RevOps is like, what are those leverage points that really influence a metric and in terms of activities, things that have to be done that are
Mm.
maybe not being done or need to be ramped up. And then who does those things, those linkage points? I think RevOps still comes down to that, even in this space of AI. And the last two things that I want to add in is I added this actually is like the math has to math. If you are not good with numbers and you cannot follow the math, you're not going to succeed. I literally was talking to a team for one of my clients yesterday, and we had to do a presentation for our executives. And I was like, we need to be able to walk them through the math. This walk
Right.
has to be clear. And so we did this presentation so that the COO and the CCO could really understand our thinking and our recommendation. And then the last one is a lot of people that I work with or I come on or I coach or companies that I join think it's all about building the cool thing or using the cool system. And I'm like, no one cares. I was literally with a different client today, a large $1 billion client. And they're like, we can build all this amazing system, but if no one actually uses it and no one understands the impact on the other side, this is all done for nothing. And they were so spot on.
Yeah, I mean, you bring up a lot of really great points. The math has to math really called out to me because it does end up sometimes you get in this trap, especially now with AI, of it's all about the systems. And you said something about the metrics and the outcomes, what activities are we eliminating? All of those things have to make sense and it all has to tie to the math, which goes back to some of those fundamental RevOps thinking and things that you thought about or that you were thinking about and that have always been true. So building that foundation right now, I think is more important than ever. And it sounds like companies are struggling with that you're working with, right? A lot of companies, they have engineers like ours is like that. They're build, 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 build. And it's like, well, what problem are we trying to solve? We've got new, fun, cool stuff to play with. And it's really cool. But if you don't have documentation
Yes.
loaded or your definitions of all your fields somewhere, what does that mean? The math won't math.
Well, and to add one more thing, and you made me think of another example from a past client, we have to remember there is a human on the other side of a lot of this. Maybe less humans with AI, who knows? But there still are a lot of humans around on the other side of this. And this is a very true story. I worked with a company and they were a very product led growth company, and their product backend integrated with our SFDC as it
Mhm.
should, because we had, product, we had to get things set up quickly. We were moving fast. And true story, we kept getting this error from a Salesforce side. We didn't understand what we were seeing. And then we like opened up the hood. We talked to the product team. Turns out they had launched a new product. Congratulations. Hadn't told anybody. Hadn't told anybody from a Salesforce side, so we did not have anything set up to provision these new clients so nobody could access. There is a
Wow.
human on the other side of this, your customer. So great that you build that and great that you shipped it. No one can use that product, by the way. We fixed it.
Right. Yeah, of course. Of course you did. But it goes back to the silos and doing things in a box and not working cross functionally, which is really the core of revenue operations. And I think as we look at this AI wave right now, I mean, and it's just, it's obviously it's been here, but it feels like in the last probably 2 to 3 months, it's even exploded even more with Claude and everything like that. Um, what feels meaningfully different now in terms of the past shifts that we've seen in go to market versus now with this wave of AI?
Yeah, I was thinking about this question. I love this question, Sandy. And, everyone is building, building, building. I mean, I still am like, oh, I need time to go and switch from ChatGPT to Claude and get on Claude Code. I'm behind. I'm behind. I'm admitting it. I know right here on. But two things I keep thinking about. I mean, we all remember the SaaS tech sprawl. Heck, many of us are still in the SaaS tech sprawl.
Hmm.
Maybe now the sprawl is getting less and now we're just pivoting over to the AI sprawl. And I think it's becoming even more. I am noticing that in conversations I am having with people in VC, with companies that I'm working with, where before they were like, help advise us on XYZ product. They're like now like help advise us on like what we should build and what we shouldn't. So everyone is like, we must build, we have to build, build, build. What people are not talking about, well, that's not true. Maybe my CIOs are talking about it, but
Hmm.
they're not, but often they're kind of outside of go to market is no one is talking about the security and the governance in a way that really, when I was, part of enterprise systems at Medallia or leading VP operations at different companies, that was critical. That was a critical part of our motion. And it just feels like it's gotten a blind eye. Everyone's like, whatever, we're just building. We got to move fast, no governance. And it terrifies me
Hmm.
because
Hmm.
I mean, maybe it's because I worked with a cybersecurity company. Maybe it's because I read This Is How They Tell Me the World Ends about O days. And I'm like, wait a minute, we're just going to completely open up and unlock all our systems and have no governance. I'm not even talking about you need some really well paid, very experienced CIO. I'm talking as basic as you have CEOs out there telling everybody to get on AI. And then I'm like, excuse me, do you have an enterprise
Hmm.
license for whatever LLM you're selecting? And they're like, no. And I'm like, wait a minute. So you're telling everybody to go do this. They're absolutely loading your customer information into their personal chat GPT. That
Right.
terrifies me. Right.
Right. Oh, yeah, it's happening everywhere. So I definitely applaud the companies that are rolling out full enterprise, name the LLM tool. I think that's great. I think there still has to be some level of governance, especially everybody's like, oh, well, let's just plug in the call recording data. Let's just plug in the Salesforce or the HubSpot data. And, without that governance, without meaningful reporting setup, you're just giving it'd be like, hey, here's a report in Salesforce. You don't know what any of these things mean, and just go, make it yourself and
I'll
draw
agree.
whatever
I mean,
conclusion you
there's
want.
there's laws out there, health tech companies that are
Oh, that's
HIPAA
oh yeah.
governed and compliant, right? I mean, there is like customer information, there is GDPR, and yeah.
Hmm.
So that is something that I'm sure some people are talking about it, but what I am
Hmm.
witnessing in terms of this frenzy to build and everyone free, I'm like, what are you putting in there?
Right.
Can we talk about that?
So is that so how are you approaching that with your clients then when they're doing that, in terms of, obviously your scope's going to be more around go to market, and some of
Correct.
this is broader, but it impacts go to market because suddenly everybody wants access to the go to market tools to get the information. So how are you approaching that?
Good question. I mean, some of it is just starting to ask the question, like, who's responsible for the AI strategy? Who's responsible for the governance? How are you thinking about security? Have you thought about how you're going to deploy this level of change across your organization? Some of it is just like helping them slow down and pause to ask the questions to elucidate, oh, we hadn't thought about that.
Hmm.
Literally, that's just like step one. And then I have
Hmm.
clients that are like doing a really good job. They're like, yes, we have Claude or we have Glean and it is set up and is maintained by our IT org. I'm like, okay, you guys are like well ahead. The conversations I'm having with them are different than the security and governance because they have the governance in place. What I'm
Right.
talking to them about are, okay, how are you thinking about the measurement of the cost associated with this AI transformation? Who's tracking that? How are you
Mm-hmm.
thinking about the metrics that you're going to use to understand what success looks like? Even if you don't know, I'm like, fine, no one knows. Let's just throw a dart at a board, come up with it, track it, see how far we off, and we'll probably learn a lot, much like measurement of all the other things,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
But what I'm finding is people are like, we're not. We're just doing all the things. So I'm trying to just like slow them down to just like have a little bit of a plan, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's like this is where we'll get to the year end of the boards that say like the highest credit spend in the company, or something like that, right?
Yes.
I mean, I can see that coming, like the Folly Awards or something like that. But yeah, I mean, to your point, I think everybody's figuring it out. So I think there'll be a course correction of governance. I had somebody ask me because ZoomInfo has a built-in connector, and we've got ZoomInfo plugged into Clay. It maps to our ICP.
Mhm.
It'll, I have it all set up with all the automation that we need there. But we rolled out Enterprise Claude and somebody saw like the Zoom Info connection. They're like, oh, can I connect this? And I'm like, no, I'm spending, like, I'm monitoring the credits and we're pushing them in based on our ICP and the personas.
Yes.
And I have a budget. If I just willy nilly, like, let everybody have the Zoom Info connector to Claude, they're just going to like use up my 50K credits that I've allotted
Yes.
for this year,
And then you're going to see that cost skyrocket. I mean, Zoom Info. Hey, Henry Schuck. He's going to be over here
I
applauding, but you're
know.
like going to be shutting it down with your CFO.
And then they're not even going to be in Salesforce because they're just going to like pull them out and then they're going to put in a request and say, can you put these in Salesforce? I mean, like, no, it's
Agreed.
already
The,
set
the
up. It's already set
silos
up in
are going
Clay.
to result from everyone. And again, I get it. If you're a small company,
Yeah.
I'm like, fine. But if you're north of 50 million, you're just creating a whole lot of stuff that's going to have to be unwrapped a little bit later.
Right. Right. Yeah. I mean, that leads me to talking about operationalizing AI. So, what do RevOps leaders need to get right first before they start really thinking about layering in AI and automation?
Yeah. And these aren't sexy answers, but I'm going to say them anyways. It
Hmm.
comes back again to what that CEO of Box was talking about. I'm going to send you that post. It was a great post.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, these leverage points are going to be shaped by people who really understand how things get done in the
Hmm.
business. And I think strong RevOps teams, strong RevOps practitioners and leaders probably have a really good idea of that given the nature of our work in terms of not just how things get done in our own little world, but cross functionally. That's what we have to do all the time. We've just been automating it with SaaS tools. If we've been
Right.
automating it, maybe we haven't been automating it at all, but maybe we've been mapping it, right? And pushing it
Right.
along like a boulder. But I do think the
The
process,
hamster's in the background, right?
yes,
Doing it.
yes, the process mapping is still so integral. And you
Hmm.
talked about this, Sandy, and I was really happy when you did the documentation because we have to tell this model what to go and do. But then one thing that I talk to my clients about is they're like, well, let me just map what is, what is, what is. I'm like, okay, it's good for us to map that so we can take a step
Hmm.
back and understand what is our current process, how do we optimize? But we also have to design for the future, right?
Hmm.
So process mapping, documentation of that process mapping to design for the future so that, yes, then you can tell your agent what to do, power your agent, design the prompts, but you have to
Hmm.
have an idea of where you were going, right?
Right. So, how do you have an example of something like that?
Yeah, I do. I mean, this is like a pretty lightweight example. And I like
Hmm.
there's a question we're gonna get to later, but I'll bring it in now.
Okay.
One of my former clients, probably maybe about like 6 months to a year ago, maybe a year ago, was experimenting and starting to experiment with AI. And they had a CRO. She was very AI forward, was like, we need to embrace this. It also came from the CEO. And so she was like, hey, what are some of the processes that we need to really unpack and optimize in this business? And one of them, I will tell you where they started. One of them I was given when I got in this like 14-page discovery playbook in
Mhm.
Word. And I was like,
Mhm.
really? You expect your sellers to fill this out? No. And then it was like, okay, fill out all these things, but they didn't have an idea of what good looked like. So the CRO was like, hey, I'm really passionate about discovery. We need to tighten this. Can you help me tighten this process? And can you also help me tighten and give them the answers? Like you're going to ask these questions and then you're going to get these answers. So they see the before and after. I'm like, yes. So I built that and we shrunk like 14 pages down to like 4. But then I
Nice.
said, this is still painful. And we
Right.
still don't want to do this in a doc. And so I ended up going to the head of Enablement and I was like, this is a ripe opportunity for you, being the owner of this and the one who's going to reinforce it, to create a custom GPT to replace this. So they can
Mhm.
just like, write what they're doing, get the answers, it can be interactive with them. And that is what happened. By the way, that was the first use case she did. Kudos to her. And then she took all of that knowledge and we were like, what's another one? I'm like, RFP management. You guys have a lot of
Yes.
RFPs. I just discovered this. You don't have a tool for it. I've implemented Loopio. I'm like, you could go add in tens of thousands of dollars on a tool,
Mhm.
or we could try and just see if we can get to, an RFP engine, AI powered ask answer tool. So they did
Yep.
that. You were able to deflect and route a majority of the RFPs to that. So what I'm bringing to you is that these don't have to be this like my entire sales funnel is powered by agents. Like start with something
Right.
that you know really well and make marginal improvement and then let it scale and then move on to the next thing, right?
Yeah, that really hits home, I think. And to your point, you've got Lupio, RFPIO, there's a lot of
Mhm.
those tools which,
Yep.
they're great and
They're great tools.
they've added a lot of AI functionality within the tools. At the same time, do you really need to invest in a tool if you do have an enterprise AI tool or engine at your company that you can leverage and really build those things and leverage the engineers and build them effectively? And I think the game has changed in the build or buy world these days. I think that's what I think if you'd asked me 6 months ago, build or buy, I'd be like 100% buy.
Yeah.
And like because, of my team. But now we've got enterprise Claude, so I'm rethinking some things differently. I don't need
Okay,
the big,
agreed.
heavy traditional tools. I can go with a lighter weight tool that has an MCP server connection and get some of the data. Like there's
Mhm.
different choices you can make that I made differently even like 3 or 4 months ago.
Yeah, and it's funny. I was talking with one of my like VP of enterprise systems about this and with one of my clients. And they're a large org, right? Large
Mhm.
org. And we were talking about this and I know this is so cliche. It is not one size fits all, right?
Right.
There are some things that I'm like, we can go build that. There are
Mhm.
other things I'm like, we are absolutely not building that.
Right.
I think we have
Right.
to think about what is the risk associated with it. This is an
Right.
internal tool to improve our internal productivity. And we think, and it's like a fairly small population. There's not a lot of complexity. You're not this massive war where you're already super fractured and it's gonna like you can probably build that. If this is
Mhm.
something customer facing that is going to
Mm.
be like this has to be 1000% accurate and maintained and cannot go out and like we need to make sure that the engineers are keeping it up like a product.
Mhm.
I don't know if I'm going to risk some homegrown tool for that people are doing
Yeah.
inside, right?
Yeah, yeah. Anything that touches the customer facing, I 100% agree. I think you have to be really careful in drawing the line, like things like enablement tools and deal rooms and, all those interactive tools. I think those you don't want to try to build those, right? There's
Yeah,
security risks, there's
agreed.
things like this.
Agree.
Yeah, I think you're totally right, and it also, to your point, depends on the size of the company. So, you're a larger company, a billion-dollar company, you're not going to, unless you have a whole team of AI engineers that are building this stuff out, which some of them are getting there,
Right. You have
and
like
doing
your
that.
MCP, you have your Ricardos of the world, you have the infrastructure
Mhm.
for it, and you have a leadership that really understands how to orchestrate and set this up and architect something that is very well governed.
Right,
Okay. Right.
right.
Again, you have to kind of think about like, what is the environment I'm living in? Who is the end user of this? And like, I was talking to different client. I only have a few clients, by the way. I was talking to a different client about this, and I was talking with their product and engineering team about a product, a solution we were going to buy that was customer facing, kind of like to enable a lot of like self serve from a customer side. That is AI powered. It is AI native. Well, everything is AI native now. And if not, like, what are you doing? And
Right.
the end machine was like, we can just build this. And I was like,
Mhm.
I've looked at your roadmap and your product and engine. I'm like, you're behind on all these things. Who's going to build this? And great, you build the thing. That's not just them using this tool. They're gonna want reporting. Are you also building the reporting? Are you
Mhm.
also developing it? Are you also creating releases? Are you ready to take all that on? Oh, and by the way, this is tied to our board level OKRs of things that
Mhm.
to mitigate from a like cost savings or a customer savings perspective. Are you gonna be able to make this change in the time that we need to realize? And then they're like, oh, I'm like, yeah, no, you're not building it.
Mhm. Right, 'cause it's the same resources. Those engineers that build their products are also the ones that are going to build the, whatever you need for the go-to-market team, which is a really important point as far as building out the go-to-market team and bringing in the right people with the right skill sets that can deploy whatever the strategy is. And along those lines, thinking about practical value in go to market today across whether it's sales, marketing, customer success, enablement. What are you seeing out there that is working and giving practical value?
Yeah. I mean, we've talked about the discovery playbooks, RFP
Right.
engine, lighter weight. If you're like, I just need something small, I mean, account research, basic, right? There are
Mhm.
account research GPTs, you can build those. You don't have to buy something for that right out the gate. I mean, and if you're gonna buy, make sure it fills a lot of your use cases, right? Um, there's also like marketing funnel optimization. So, there's your defaults. I'm a huge fan of default, like very AI,
Mhm.
like that's out there that's working well. I'm seeing people use AI to launch support agents to help deflect support tickets that should not be going to their support team, but should be managed by an AI agent instead. So that's another thing. It's other areas on the post sale side, maybe like automation of notification. So an agent that's like, hey, this customer is at risk, and or like that drives your customer along through call to actions, or that drives your CSM along to call to actions. Those are others. I'm seeing a number of asset development AI, either in-house or tools, which is like, hey, we're going to help you, build out your first pursuit or account plan. And those are really painful. And usually they live, if you're even doing them, in some Google Doc or PowerPoint that nobody wants to fill out. And I'm seeing people say, "Hey, we probably have a lot of that information in these calls that we're recording in a Gong or whatever call recording tool that you're using. We could probably populate a lot of that in there and then validate." And then the deeper ones that I'm seeing that are one, and while I have not used this myself, I have clients who have, and I've heard stories from others in my network, the AI SDR. Now there's a lot of different
Mhm.
AI SDR, BDR, a lot of different thoughts about that. The one that I'm hearing consistently being very high value, I think they have like, I think the CEO just posted about she has like over a 200% net revenue
This
retention.
is actually AISDR, the
Correct.
company
This is one
AISDR. Yep.
mine.
Yep.
Do not work for One Mind, but hi, Amanda Kalo.
Oh, I
And
love
they
Amanda.
have,
She's so
yeah,
amazing. Isn't she
so
so I
amazing.
love her story. Ooh,
She has,
I should get her on here.
oh, you should, 100%.
Ooh,
She is
yeah.
great. She is really great. But there are a lot of customers that are raving about what it has done for their organization and have
Mhm.
the metrics to prove it. So that's one that I feel like is very deep and very ahead of the game. And then I'm hearing, other ones where it's kind of a build where there's the lighter weight ones, but they have their own LMM, they have their own MCP, and they're really using it to take all the data they have in these disparate places and they're ingesting it and then they're spitting.
Mhm. Mhm.
So yeah, there's a lot going on. It,
I know, I know. And it's you have to really, I think, focus on the core. What are the core outcomes you're trying to achieve? And really stick to that because there's a lot of shiny objects out there, and it's really easy to go down a rabbit hole that I've found for sure chasing something. So, what are the
yes.
biggest mistakes that you're seeing when teams make as they try to go from hey, getting your toes wet, diving in, clicking around versus actually trying to adopt.
Yeah. I mean, one of the first mistakes, and it's less, I mean, I guess it could impact the adoption because you'll just have less time because you're spending less time doing that is we talked about this thinking you have to build everything.
Mm,
Everything has to be AI-ified. You cannot buy anything. For
AIify,
that earlier, I think that's the wrong approach. There are certain
right?
things that I'm like, this is not worth it for us to try and figure out. We're going to go like, what's the price point on this thing? What are we going to get? Have they figured it
Mhm,
out? Do they have proven use cases and example customers that they're working with that are our level of scale? Yeah, then I'm going to go buy that because
mhm,
it makes sense, right? Because if we're building, who am I taking off something else that is critical for the business? There's always that trade off. So
right.
that's fun. The other thing, because we're talking about adoption, and I don't think this is necessarily just AI, it's really any technology solution, is everyone's so, and it's just what we've seen in builds or in our decades of experience, right? Which is they get so excited about the build and the thing that they're going to launch, and they have no plan for what happens after that. They have no plan for the reinforcement or like I was talking with one of my clients and we're scaling and implementing Gong, right? And Gong is very like they have a lot of AI power within that
Mhm,
signal. But they're like, okay, and they were asking the right questions. They're like, Anne, okay, you've implemented Gong a number of times. And we want to, and we're reconfiguring all this stuff in terms of our funnel design, and we're launching all these new assets, and some of them we might AI power, and we're doing all this stuff. There's all this work. But they're like, "But we have to make sure that after we reach this massive milestone and launch that people actually use it." And I was like,
mhm,
1000% right." They're like, "So what are we gonna do there?" I'm like, "This is where we have to have a cadence, some sort of cadence meeting that is recurring where we are using this, and we are also informing how is this changing people's workflow." I was talking to their head of Enablement. She said, "I need to be able to say to a sales rep or a CSM, this is how your day to day or week to week or month to month will change."
mhm.
Those are the right things to be asking, and it's not just a one and done, it's continuous, right?
You've mentioned enablement, I think at least 3 times so far during this session, and I really want to double down on that because it's so important, in my opinion, especially when we think about AI adoption, where everybody wants to AIify, which I love that. I think we should
Yes,
see if the
take it.
domain name is taken on that. And but in all seriousness, without enablement, it's gonna die like any other adoption. It'll be the shiny object if you're not measuring the outcomes. And I'm really passionate about enablement in now my role, my roles changed a little bit, so I'm running enablement and revenue operations, so it's all under one umbrella. And I'm no longer running client growth, which my phone pings a lot less now, so yay me. uh, so my point to all this is enablement is so critical. You keep bringing this up. It sounds like you go find the enablement leaders at companies you work with
Mhm.
in terms of these adoption plans. So I just wanted to point that out. Do you find that RevOps and enablement teams that you work with, they're working together, they're under one umbrella, they're, kind of co-owning this type of thing? What are you seeing?
Yeah, yeah, it's a good question. I mean, so one, congratulations on the expansion of your role, by the way, that's awesome.
I look at it as expansion and like shedding. I mean, I love our clients, but I really want to
Yeah,
build out our engine, and
yes,
it's hard to do both because clients always come first. So
yes, yes. To answer your question, so when I was in-house, probably out of the 5 times that I ran revenue operations, 4 of those 5 times, enablement sat within my organization.
Mhm.
And there were real benefits. I and sometimes it didn't, and then they moved it under. Um, I found it just helped us really operate like such a tight machine
Mhm.
but I also value as a human the end user experience. I really value like, okay, we're going to do all this work and then what's going to happen? I'm always designing with like, who's the person on the end of this that hasn't been involved that needs to know what to do? And it's
Right.
interesting that you mention, if you don't have enablement, it doesn't happen because I have a slightly different take, which is that I tell my teams, yes, we are lucky enough to have an enablement person or function within our
Right.
organization. And I expect all of you on my team to do enablement. It is
Right.
not just that person's job. So I am
Right.
architects were like, well, so and so is the head of Enablement, and I just manage SFDC. I don't have to do any enablement. I'm like, do you think that she or he can do a better job walking people through how to use Salesforce most optimally? Do
Right.
you really think that? And
Right.
I'm like, we have to share this because enablement is all around us, right? And
Oh,
so
yeah.
I think enablement is
Mhm.
everyone's job. And then to answer your other question, which was, do I go and I find the enablement person? I find them where they find me. It's
Right.
often what happens. And I am
They're
like,
like, "Help me."
they're like, yes, please, we need a partner. Usually they are seeking a partner, right? And
Right.
so I just think it is such an instrumental role because that's
Mhm.
the last person they're talking about. Like you can do all the things, but who's hopefully talking with the end user the
Mhm.
most and hearing where they're struggling? It's enablement, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and I think you bring up a really good point that enablement isn't always a person. It's really a function. It's something that needs to happen. So you may have a name that you can put on an org chart that's in charge of it, but if there isn't a body for that, like you're enablement. So for
Agree.
me,
Like,
like
guess what? It's
I'm
your job.
enablement. And then by the way, I take the salesperson that's in the tools the most and I ask them to run the training, and
Yes.
I help them and we figure it out. So
And
I
by the
think,
way, why wouldn't they wanna do it? It's such a
right.
great way to showcase your work and get
Hmm.
out from behind the screen and what you're building and talk to your end customer, which is the internal stakeholder, right?
Yep. I think it's a great way to look at it. And it's just really all part of the process. So if you want the adoption, especially with AI and turning that experimentation into real adoption, I think all of that reinforcement you talked about and the enablement is definitely critical. And then it comes to you've mentioned ROI a little bit, but how do you think RevOps leaders or just leaders in general should be measuring ROI from AI?
Oh gosh, yeah. The constant question on ROI, and I kind of have this allergic reaction whenever I hear ROI, like when I, would get like pitched by sellers and they would talk about ROI, they were those poor sellers. I would be like, "How did you get to this? Like, what
All
informs
right.
that number? Like, what is this really?" Like,
They're like Chat GPT.
right? And so I know everyone wants the ROI. It's the catchy thing. What I hear people I'm gonna talk about 2 things. We talked about this a little bit earlier. Everyone's talking about the ROI, but I'm like, it's not just that. It's also like cost mitigation. Like how much effort and time and expenditure and focus that we were not putting in other areas of our business do we have to do in order to launch this? Right? What
Mm,
did we give up? What were the trade-offs? I want somebody to tell me that, right?
right.
Understand because then I have full picture. The other thing that I was thinking about when I saw this question is the I always think about my old former CIO, Ashwin Ball, amazing CIO, and he was like, "Do not come to me with ROI stories around productivity because you basically have just told me that I don't need you anymore or that I can
Right.
eliminate that headcount." He's like, "Do not come to me with productivity." Now, I am not as hard on that line. I think productivity and efficiency absolutely matter. And
Hmm.
for a go-to-market organization, and I was thinking about this, I'm like, "How would we do this actually?" Maybe you have an idea, Sandy. I was like, "What are the things that I have been able to witness in terms of AI solutions that had material impact on the thing that my CRO or CEO cares the most about, which is revenue?"
Hmm.
And it is what is the moment that we are able to capture that we can tie to AI? It's almost like AI attribution, if you will, that
Hmm.
got our customer to change their mind and get closer to wanting to do business with us or expand their business. And you might say, how would we know that? And I'll give you an example because this is true and real. I introduced a tool, an AI tool, to one of my customers. And I introduced it based on a very real pain use case that one of their sellers was having. The seller posted in this large Slack was like, "I have a meeting with so and so buyer in 2 hours and I have to be able to give an example of ROI, there it is, and use
Hmm.
case to using us as a business as their solution. Who can get me something?" And
Hmm.
product marketing went, "We can get you something in February." This was November.
Sounds like a product marketing answer.
To be fair, they had like one product marketing person, but I was like, I saw this, I laughed. I'm like, okay, here goes. He's like, I have a meeting in 2 hours. I'll get you something in 3 months. I'm like, oh, that's not going to work. And I've been playing around with this tool, which I didn't have to, by the way, governance. I didn't have to load any information in there. I just said, what's the company? What's the prospect name? And it spit out using access to publicly available information, our website, their website. It put together use cases based on information that it could glean from our website. I didn't give it any other information. And I was
Mm,
like, hey, can I show you something I just whipped up in like 5 minutes? I mean, like, I haven't been able to check it, but it like you can validate, our website, and maybe this helps you tell the story that you need to tell with
mhm.
this buyer in 2 hours. I met with the rep and I was like, by the way, I have 5 minutes, rep, because I have to go into a meeting. I,
Right.
he's like, oh my God, where'd you get this? I showed him, he's like, yeah, those numbers are right.
Wow.
I'm gonna take it. I'm like, cool, take it. Let me know how it goes. He went into the meeting. I checked in with him next day. I'm like, how'd it go? He's like, oh my God, Anne, it went so well. They're gonna take it forward to the buying committee. I was
Hmm.
like, no. He's like, yes. That deal had been in best case. It moved to commit.
Mm,
Moved to commit. And that was the thing that moved it. And I
wow.
was like, I need a way to tag this. So I'm like,
Right.
what are the moments? Are we going to have a way that a rep's like, I just use AI and we're going to tag it? Because that's what we should be doing. You want to prove the value
Mhm.
of that tool, and
Right.
you have some ideas. But that's one thing. Like, how do we capture those moments that
Yeah.
are anecdotal, that we know this is the thing that shifted it, right?
Yeah. I think so. I have some thoughts on that. Are you comfortable naming the tool? Because now I want to know. Like, is it? Because
Yes.
I don't have any. No one. I don't have any brand. This is my podcast, so I can say what I want on it. So if you
Yes.
want to
Well, and
give
I
a
will,
plug, if you want
full
to give a plug,
disclosure, I am their advisor, but I didn't
okay,
mention them until you asked.
I'm good.
um,
Yeah.
yeah.
Say it
It's
away.
storypath.ai.
Story path.
It's
Cool.
the founders are Doug Landis. He was the chief storytelling officer at Box. He was former VP sales productivity at Salesforce. And then John Brunswick, who was the innovation at Salesforce. So they built it.
Awesome. Awesome. We'll include the link in the show notes. So, yeah, totally. This is all about practical use cases, tips,
Yeah.
what's working. So, totally good with that. In terms of how do you flag that? Because I agree with you. Like, people are tired of hearing of efficiency. Oh, it's going to save time and calculate the amount of hours. And if you have 100 employees and it saves them 20 minutes for each for a deal prep, you have this much and it's 100,000 saved. Blah, 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 blah. Like, we
Yeah.
can do that all day long.
Yep.
And that's the only, I think, way people have been doing this really across the board, non GTM as well. Like when people are trying to get approvals for tools, they're like, okay,
Yep.
it's going to save this, or I only need, one head count instead of 3 head count or something like that. And I think that's great and all, but yeah, you need to be able to show the outcome. And
Yes.
one guest I had, Olga Triskova.
Oh,
I
I
don't
know
think you know.
Olga very well.
Yeah, yeah,
She's
she's
awesome.
awesome. She was on, I forget what number, so you can check it out. But she was talking about the mutual action plans
Mm,
and using Gong to, or whatever call intelligence you want to use, pick all of that up in the process and then attribute it to the different stages, right? So you know the outcomes and really embedding, pulling the map out of the calls and pushing it in there, and then showing. I think that's potentially a way to show that the AI is paying off, because if you're
yes.
detecting the map and it's advancing the stages by
Yes.
pulling it through the AI that you're employing, that's definitely that was a practical use case she gave. So I thought that was really cool.
Such a great example. And yeah, Olga is incredible and very, very AI forward RevOps leader. And I'm going to use that because one of my clients wants to use Gong and wants to build a map. And I
Yep.
just literally sent them an example of, I was like, you don't need to go buy a map tool. Like, don't go
Right.
buy, get your process
Yeah.
this and then consider how we could populate it via your call recording. So that's a great example to share.
Definitely. Yeah, so but to your point, it's really how do you attribute it to revenue? Because at the end of the day, that's what CEOs care about, that's what CROs care about, that's what finance cares about. It's what outcome, by bringing in this tool, applying this tool, what problem are you trying to solve? And then
Yeah.
ultimately, what's the outcome? What is the revenue outcome? Or if it's days in stage or win rate or whatever it
Yes.
is, like legitimately tying it to that, not just, making assumptions. But I think that's really important, the measurement aspect, and just not leaning back on hours saved.
Yeah. And it's, I also think the other side of this, which is interesting, is that's why people, I think, are not willing to buy yet because there is still
Mm,
a perception of, and by the way, that client I introduced that company to, even with that very real concrete thing, I'm like, this basically gives you, if that deal closed, I think it's in line to close, it would give you a 5x ROI right there. Just
right,
one deal, not
right,
using any others. The only thing it did, you would get a 5x ROI,
right,
right?
right.
But when I talked with the CEO about it, and again, I understand where his point was because he's like, we have to drive a behavior change. AI is not going to, we have to get the behavior change first. There was still a perception that his teams could go and do this and build on their own.
Mm,
And I think that's gonna absolutely be true when you're thinking about productivity. We can just, like,
mhm,
hack it with chat GPTs and do it deploy, but I was like, "I disagree. Your reps do not have the context built into their heads, and we don't want them spending time thinking about the right prompt and the right I don't want them spending their time
right,
doing I wanna give them
right,
the answer so they can go sell and do their job," right?
right,
Comes again to how much time and effort is it gonna take,
right.
right? Is the juice worth the squeeze?
Right. Yeah, and just giving them the tool and leaving it to their own devices to write their own prompt. It doesn't mean they can't do it. It's just not going to scale. It doesn't
Mhm.
maximize their time. Now, can you learn from what people have built and build off of
Yes.
that? Of
Great point.
course. Like
Great point.
those
Mhm.
are especially since things are new, right? Some people are just really technical and really into it and have built some really cool stuff. So, work with them and build off of it, if they've
Mhm.
already started something. So I
Make
think
them
those
the
are,
winning champion within it.
yep,
You know? Yeah.
exactly. Exactly. But at the end of the day, if your reps are just not doing the thing and they're lazy, whether you put AI on it or not, or provide them with all the right tools, you're going to still have the same problems. So they may just weed themselves out because now
Mhm.
there's not going to be an excuse, right? If
Right,
you set
which is
everything up correctly.
100%, which is why I said, "Okay, you know what? I hear you." And again, it comes back to that process. I'm like, "Let's design the process. Let's give them the manual template thing, tool, widget that they're gonna have to use. Let's hold them accountable so they really feel the pain of having to do it." And
Hmm.
let's be like, "Guess what? Now that you've shown us you can do it, we're gonna give you the AI-ify way." And they'll be like, "Thank God, because we've trained behavior." Now,
Right.
I'm kinda like, I think you could just AI-ify and still just hold them accountable, but some
Right.
people want a step approach, so
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Like, I'll give an example of that. Right now, people are filling out MedPick fields, and very soon we're switching tools. I've been doing a comprehensive evaluation, and that will automatically happen. So I don't have to
Yes.
worry about people pressing buttons.
Yay!
In fact, most of my fields are going to be filled out with AI here in a short order. So but the pain of them knowing and having to listen to a call and type it in should make them appreciate it in the future because that is coming very soon. So,
Yes.
so as you think about AI in the future, what do you think? How do you think AI will reshape the role of RevOps over the next couple of years?
Oh gosh. I mean, one, I think it's just widened it's going to widen, and it is already widening the aperture of how we think about approaching solving a problem. There's just so many more options available to us. Whereas before it was like you had to use this very specific tool and it had a monopoly and you were going to be locked into price. And now we have a lot more power, right?
Hmm.
As buyers. So I think that's one. There's just and you don't have to get locked into something. I think it's going to also change the structure of contracts. I mean, I
Hmm.
literally told my RevOps team one of my past clients was going to sign like a 3-year deal, and I'm like, for like some tool that I wasn't a huge fan of, and they're like, but they gave us a deal and we negotiate. I'm like, we're not signing any deals unless you're, and I don't even know sales. I'm like, unless you're Salesforce, or like we're not signing anything beyond a year.
Yes.
'Cause, like,
Oh.
it's changing so fast, and frankly, I don't care discount, we probably could get more because they wanna keep our business, so I
Hmm.
think that it's changing the landscape of how we buy tooling, what we know is available to us, and the power that we have in our ability to negotiate. That's one.
Yeah. SaaS is changing altogether. Like it is completely changing. So that's from our perspective of the vendor relationships. So think about the product on their side of it, how they're charging fees and how they're structuring their products and forecasting changes. Like I think everything is changing right now. But nobody in RevOps should be signing anything that's more than a year right now, unless to your point, it's your CRM. So looking ahead, how do you think AI will reshape the role of RevOps over the next few years?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's kind of two parts to this. One, I think it's definitely widened the aperture in terms of options available to RevOps leaders and practitioners in terms of selecting solutions or ways to solve their problem. I look back, it was like before, if you needed data about your accounts or on your phone, there were just a couple providers you could go to. Like that was it.
Right,
There were just only a
right.
couple ways to get to it, and it was a high price tag, and it was absolutely they had the power.
Mhm,
And now with AI, it's kind of broken that power and that monopoly.
mhm,
A lot more of the power back in the hands of buyers, right?
mm,
Well, I think that is a big shift. And I was also thinking that teams that I'm working with who are procuring technology or have contracts coming up. I had someone come to me recently who was thinking about getting a new tool and was like, "Yeah, well, the sales rep I negotiated and I proposed we sign a 3-year deal." And I was like, "What are you
mhm.
about? We're not signing a 3-year deal." I'm like, "I'm not signing
Right.
a 2-year deal." I'm like,
Yeah,
I don't even think this. I'm not even sure this product is the right thing for our go to market, but I have way bigger fish to fry right now. And so I'm not going to be able to do some deep review of that. So I'll sign maybe a 1 year if they come and make it convincing, but that's
yeah,
all you're going to get. And
yeah.
so that's one thing. I think our view and how we think about technology, the options available, and putting the power back in the hands of the buyer very much is one way. And the other way is with respect to, we've talked a lot about process and we've talked a
Mhm,
lot about enablement. And I think that it is going to, what I hope it does is that it is really forcing us to, that system thinking, look across our whole landscape of things that have to get done and
mhm.
core processes that have to get done and the workflows that are going to be impacted and the end users on the outside of all of those processes. And so I think we're just going to be hopefully thinking with a much more design first mentality in terms of how we operate because we have to. Because now our end users, because they're now using AI at home and they're now getting a lot more astute and it's creating this technical aptitude that was previously unavailable. So they're expecting more from us.
That is a really, really huge point. I think the expectations are elevated. And I think the way you're looking at it, that calls out to me revenue architecture. So, what is that entire framework? And how
Mhm.
do all those layers fold in? And then the strategy really behind that.
Mhm. Mhm. Yep.
Okay, this I'm sure we could go on and on and on, and I cannot wait to see you at the next conference. Where are you? Are you speaking anywhere in the
I
near term or
I
next
am
couple of
not
months?
speaking, but I am going. I spoke at their last 2 conferences. I'll be at the
Mhm.
Creators Guild conference in May in Chicago, but I'm just attending.
Cool.
Yay. I'm just like,
Awesome.
I don't have to speak. I'm gonna
No
go.
pressure. You go network and shake hands and
I
kiss
can just hang
babies.
out with friends. So I'm gonna be going to that. Which ones are you going to?
RevOps AF. I'm going to be on a
Oh, yeah.
panel. The San Francisco. I'll be going there, and then I'm actually going to London. I'm so excited for also RevOps AF, and then the Alliance. Their sessions. So we decided to make a family trip out of it. So I'm kind of double
Nice.
dipping. So I'm very excited about that.
Oh, awesome. Well, you'll be great. And fun fact for the listeners, I
Mhm,
finally had a chance to meet Sandy because she got me a free ticket when I think it was like the RevOps Alliance. And I literally
mhm.
went to see you speak. I think I stayed for one more and then I went home. And I went to meet.
That
That
was
was
very
it. I was
sweet
like,
when we
I just
first
need to
met.
meet
Yeah.
Sandy and then I'm going home.
That was very sweet. And then, yeah, I definitely need to connect with you again because I know you're known for doing yoga at conferences. So
Oh,
I
yeah.
did enjoy that one. Yeah, the pavilion. That was fun. That was
Yeah.
fun. It was you and me and one other dude. What was that guy's
Yes.
name? It
I
was
have
like the
no
three of
idea.
us
It was a
on the.
scenario. It was in the middle of the hallway on the carpet. We didn't
That
have a
was
room.
awesome.
We made it
That
work.
was awesome. That worked. That was really cool.
Yeah.
So I want to close with my rapid fire questions. So I went to AI and tried to ask AI, like, hey, what are RevOps people asking about AI? So I'm ending every one of my episodes with my guests with these rapid fire questions. Some of them you've hit on, but we're going to roll through these.
Okay.
So, what's the very first place you tell a RevOps team to start with AI?
Yes. Find a process that you know inside and out. If it's not documented, document it and make sure that process is clunky as fuck. Yes, I said fuck. Fractured, painful, needs a facelift. Document that thing and then start to think about it and experiment with AI how you could make it better.
Ooh, I love that. That's a really good one because you want to give them something that they hated and make it something they love.
Mhm,
Very good.
mhm.
Next one. Is RevOps data actually AI ready today, or are most teams just automating garbage?
You know, it depends, but I would say across the board, probably more of the latter. It depends on the
Hmm.
org. What I think is that, remember, most of these organizations, even the ones with hundreds of million of revenue, don't have strong governance in their systems already.
Hmm.
That's why they hire me. They don't even have the
Hmm.
process to enable the governance. So their data is kind of crap. So they got to clean
Hmm.
all that up before AI can even come to the table as an option.
Definitely. What's one AI use case in RevOps you've seen actually work in the real world?
Yes. So we talked about this discovery playbooks, RFP engine, story path. I gave you three.
Great, great. How do you measure real ROI from AI in RevOps?
Did it meaningfully change an outcome in our sales or customer funnel and drive us forward with respect to conversion or actual real revenue?
You hit on it, real revenue. Now for the kicker. Will AI replace RevOps or will RevOps leaders who use AI replace those who don't?
It'll replace RevOps practitioners who view their jobs as solely system owners. And there are a lot of them out there who just talk about systems and this and automations. I am worried about them. But it will not
Mm.
replace the true power of a RevOps person, which I think is judgment and discernment and the ability to align business teams.
Words of wisdom from Anne. I love it. This has been a great conversation. I can't wait to see you out there. I love following you, love your posts. I really love what you do. I also appreciate and you're quite frankly, you're inspiring just being a mom and being out there as a leader and talking about your family and the challenges and all the things about diversity that people are afraid to say. So I'm always applauding you and trying to support you. So just thank you for being an inspiration to women and RevOps leaders and just lots of people. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Sandy. It goes right back at you. I love whenever I get a chance to see you, I will make the trip to the city and I would always come on and be a guest of your podcast. And I will have you in the podcast that will be coming in a few
Ooh,
months. I will invite you for sure. So, yeah.
yay. I can't wait. I love it. I love it. So, what are your final thoughts you want to leave with our guests?
You know, I think because this is a RevOps focused podcast, AI powered RevOps, and AI is, all the rage right now. I just want to allay some of the fear that we still need humans, that there are still very human problems to solve, and that the leaders or the individuals who really anchor on having strong judgment, having strong discernment ability, having the ability to say the thing that is not in the numbers and to point that out and make it very, very clear. And that also think thoughtfully about the end user, the human on the other side of all of the work. There is absolutely still a place for you.
I love it. I love it. Thank you so much and really appreciate you. This has been another episode of AI Powered RevOps.